Alright guys, this is lesson 4, Yin and Yang, building on this module where we're just going over the fundamental principles of Eastern medicine that are important to understand for your fertility. So just to start out here, looking at this Yin and Yang symbol, you guys have probably seen this before, but I don't know how many of you have actually really looked at it and contemplated what it means. So you can see there's the white side and the black side. So the white symbolizes Yang, the light, and the black symbolizes Yin, the dark. Now in this Yin-Yang model, this framework of the universe and of our bodies, it's basically just about, how everything in the universe, everything about our bodies can be categorized into Yin and Yang. And you can't really have one without the other. They are mutually consuming. Basically, you can't have light without dark, can't have dark without light. You can see there's a little bit of the black dot on the white side. That means there's a little bit of yin dormant within the yang. And on the dark side, the black side there's a little white dot symbolizing there's a little bit of yang dormant in the yin. So we'll get deeper into this as we go on. So again, yin, the dark side, and when I say dark, it's not the evil side. It's just the more cooling, moistening, and nurturing forces of the body. Yin is more associated with substance, whereas yang is more associated with function. So yin, like I said, cooling, nourishing, receptive energy. It's the foundation of feminine essence. When putting the yin-yang model onto the human, women are more yin and men are more yang. Yin is associated with rest, fluids, blood, and the body's structural and reproductive nourishment. In fertility, yin is vital for building a healthy uterine lining, supporting egg quality, nourishing cervical mucus, creating a calm, receptive environment for conception. And when yin is deficient, the body may become overheated, dry, anxious, or depleted. So we're going to be showing you guys as we go through this course how to assess your yin. That's why these concepts are so useful, because when you go to your regular fertility doctor, they might just say, oh, you have unexplained infertility. We don't know why it's happening. But if you have these Eastern medicine tools and concepts, like we actually might have a way to explain the unexplainable. Because most doctors are probably not assessing your yin or your yang energy. So that's part of what we're going to teach you to do here. So different organs correspond to yin and yang as well. The yin organs are the lung, the spleen, the liver, the heart, the pericardium, and the kidney. These organs are solid and responsible for storage, so they store vitamins and minerals. They are the most important organs, especially for fertility. And then on the yang side, yang again is warming, activating, transforming energy. Yang is the warm, active, and dynamic force that drives function and movement in the body. It governs metabolism, circulation, ovulation, and the luteal phase. In fertility, yang is essential for ovulation and egg release, warming the uterus for implantation, promoting circulation and transformation. When yang is weak, the body may feel cold, fatigued, and sluggish, and implantation may be harder. The yang organs are also known as the empty organs because they're not full of substance. They are the large intestine, the stomach, the gallbladder, the sanjiao, and the urinary bladder. So these organs are yang in nature. They're mostly responsible for getting toxicity out of the body. So they're very active in that way. Whereas the yin organs are full of substance, energy, blood, like the heart, the liver stores our vitamins and our minerals. So the yang organs collectively are involved in the transformation and movement of substance. Here's another chart here just to help you guys understand yin and yang a little more. So it can be yin and yang template can be placed over anything really, but just to get a better understanding of it here. So yin, cooling, nourishing, and cool. Yang, warming, activating, warm and hot. The function of yin is for rest, storage, and substance. The function of yang is for movement, metabolism, and action. Yin is associated with night. Yang is associated with day. Yin is associated with being calm and grounded emotionally, whereas yang is associated with motivation or outward expression. If we have too much yang, it could show up as anxiety or mania, and that would be a pathogenic like yang excess, and we need to do things to become more yin. If someone's too yin, they can become really lazy and sluggish, and in that case they have yin excess and they need more yang. So physiologically, yin is associated with fluids and hormones. Yang is associated with the metabolic fire and circulation. So the fertility role of yin is for egg quality and cervical mucus, and the fertility role of yang is mainly for ovulation, luteal warmth, and libido. When yin is deficient, there's often signs of dryness, like dry skin, dry hair, hot flashes, or anxiety. When yang is deficient, a person will have a tendency to feel more cold hands and feet, just feeling very fatigued and low libido. So like I said earlier, yin and yang are two aspects of a whole. Yin and yang aspects are in everything, day and night, male and female, hot and cold, being active and being relaxed. So in the Bible, at the very beginning of the Bible, it says something to the effect of, the universe was dark, and then God said, let there be light. So that's like yin and yang right there at the beginning of the Bible. So really there's no life in this cosmos, in this universe, without yin and yang. Like we need to have those two opposing forces. So yin and yang are divisible. For example, a 24-hour day could be divided into daytime yang and nighttime yin. So yang time of the 24-hour clock is from midnight to noon, and at noon the yin begins, and yin lasts from noon until midnight. So that's why it's very important to get to bed before midnight. Otherwise it can be more difficult because the yang energy in the universe starts to become active again. So you want to try to fall asleep when where you are in the world is still in that yin time before midnight. Also, that's why many cultures will take a siesta around noon, because we naturally start to get a little sluggish, a little tired at noon. That's when the yin kicks in. So taking a little nap, a little siesta, a little rest around noon is actually really a good way to get into this flow of the universe, this natural rhythm of yin and yang that we really want to live with, to have the best fertility possible. Yin and yang are interdependent. That means neither yin nor yang can exist in isolation and only have meaning in relation to the other. There is no hot without cold, no light without darkness, no male without female, etc. Yin and yang control each other, meaning yin and yang mutually balance each other. As yang rises, yin decreases, and vice versa. So the more activity you have in your life, like if you have excess activity, like you're overworking out, that can cause what we call yin deficiency in the body. And the other way, if you're very kind of lazy, you're in bed a lot, and you're just laying around a lot, that can be yin excess and can cause yang deficiency. That's why if you've been laying on the couch all day, just watching TV, it can be really hard to get motivated after a while. And also, the other direction, if you're used to doing things all the time, and you have a hard time resting and just being still, it can be hard for people like that to just be still for a moment, because the yang is in excess and the yin is deficient. So we just want to start thinking about this when considering our lifestyle, because it really does have a really big impact on our fertility. And most, conventional medicine will never ever think about it this way. Yin and yang transform into each other. At the point of maximum yang, yin will start to rise. So you can see that at the bottom of the yin yang symbol though, there, where there's more white at the bottom, that's maximum yang. When thinking seasonally, this can be like, the summer. And then as soon as the black on the left starts there at the bottom, that's like fall. And then at the top would be winter, the maximum yin. And then, in the spring at the top right would be starting again a little bit of yang starting in the spring. And then we get to summer again. So it's a infinite cycle of yin and yang in this universe. You could also look at that symbol and put the 24-hour clock on it. So at the top of the circle would be midnight, basically. So midnight is when the yang starts up there, and at the bottom of the circle would be noon, when the sun is highest in the sky, the most yang time of the day, and then the yin starts again. So you can see how the yin-yang model can be applied to anything in the universe, and it's just a concept, to help us understand things in a different way, in a more all-encompassing way, and we can understand our fertility using this model as well. So the role of yin and yang in fertility. Yin and yang are complementary forces that must stay balanced for healthy reproductive function. Yin is cooling, nourishing, and moistening. It's essential for building the uterine lining, nourishing the eggs, and sustaining a pregnancy, whereas yang is warming, active, and energizing. It is needed for ovulation, implantation, and the early stages of embryo development. So we want to try to cultivate a healthy balance of yin and yang energy in our bodies, and in our lifestyles. Okay, so again, everything in our bodies can be classified in terms of yin or yang, or categorized in terms of yin or yang. So when looking at neurotransmitters and hormones, yin corresponds to endorphins, cortisol, melatonin, parathormone, which is like the parathyroid hormone, estrogen, progesterone, GABA, acetylcholine, serotonin, and yang corresponds to adrenaline, thyroxine, testosterone, glutamate, norepinephrine, and dopamine. So these yin neurotransmitters and hormones, they help the body calm and relax, and they are more associated with substance, whereas these yang neurotransmitters and hormones are more associated with activity, like adrenaline, testosterone. These are very yang in nature. Norepinephrine, dopamine. If you have too much dopamine, you become manic. If you have a lot of GABA, you become very relaxed. So techniques for balancing yin and yang. So we'll get more into this in the lifestyle section towards the end, where we tell you, what actually to do to increase your fertility. Right now, we're just kind of laying the foundation and introducing these concepts, because you really have to have an understanding of these to start thinking differently about yourself and your lifestyle to really make the changes and to believe really that this will enhance your fertility. Because sometimes when your doctor doesn't know about these things, it's easy for us to just write things off. We put a lot of trust in our doctors. We've been conditioned to kind of believe like, oh, if my doctor doesn't know about it, then it must not be true, or it must not be that important. But unfortunately, our medical schools are very, very heavily influenced by the pharmaceutical industry, and they don't really teach them about lifestyle. They barely teach them anything about nutrition even. So they're definitely not teaching them about yin or yang and qi and blood in terms of Chinese medicine, or jing, or these things. But just because your doctor doesn't know about them doesn't mean they're not important, doesn't mean they're not real or true. These have been used for thousands of years to promote health and fertility, much longer than our current Western medication model of medicine has even been in existence. So here is the best, most easiest, most important ways to balance your yin and yang and your hormones, really. Going outside first thing in the morning while the sun is rising. So this is when the yang energy is active, and exposing your eyes and as much skin as comfortable to the AM sunlight. It's really only necessary to do this for about 5 to 20 minutes, but you can certainly do more than that if you'd like. It's really important not to wear glasses. You don't need to stare right at the sun. You just want to be outside with your eyes exposed to the morning light. And depending on where you live and what time of the year it is, this might be easier for some than others. If you cannot do this, I highly recommend getting what's called a sad lamp, and spending some time in front of that in the morning. These are sold for seasonal affective disorder, but they're meant to mimic sunlight. So as soon as you wake up in the morning, you could have a sad lamp on your kitchen table and just kind of have your breakfast while sitting in front of the sad lamp there, for 5 to ideally 15 to 20 minutes. And that's going to activate your yang. You're basically syncing your energy with the universal energy in your environment. And this will balance your hormones. This will increase your fertility. So as the day goes on, we want to go outside again at midday, if you can, while the sun is highest in the sky, to activate your vitamin D. Vitamin D is precursor to all hormones. Vitamin D is very important for the immune system. It's very, very important for fertility. And even if you're supplementing with vitamin D, you still need to get that midday sun to actually activate it. So if your schedule doesn't permit you to do this every day, it's okay. You can kind of make up for it on the weekends and spend more time outside during the day. Go to parks, go to the beach. Having a dog is really helpful for keeping us accountable to this yin-yang cycles, because you have to walk your dog in the morning. Your dog could probably use another walk at midday. And then we'll need another one when the sun is going down. So having a dog is actually a really great tool for keeping your yin and yang in balance. Another part of that is avoiding bright lights and bright screens while the sun is down. So anytime you're looking at a computer screen or looking at your phone, unless you have one of those apps on there that's taking off the blue light, when your brain or your eyes are exposed to that blue light on a screen, it's basically communicating to your brain that it's like noon, basically. So it throws off your entire hormonal cycle. If you're just watching TV at night, or you're working under fluorescent lights, or going grocery shopping under really bright fluorescent lights when the sun is down. So the easiest way to deal with this is to wear those blue blocker glasses, those glasses with the orange dark tint. I actually have some on right now. You'll see a lot of people in the biohacking community wearing these all the time, like in interviews and stuff, because they care about their hormone health. They're hacking their hormone health. This modern world that we live in with, unnatural lighting has really caused a lot of hormonal problems. So we want to try to hack that, and we can't just go live off the grid, most of us, so we need to figure out ways to still be in this world but protect our hormonal health. So going outside during the day and avoiding bright lights and bright screens when the sun is down, wearing blue blocker glasses. You can get really crazy about it and install red lights in your home, or turn on red light at night. Red light is like campfire, that's natural for the human body to be exposed to at night, but it's the blue light, especially the LED lights, that are really damaging to the body. You can also try to put full spectrum lighting in your home is a good idea. So LED lights, if you just film a room with LED lights, if you record it with your camera and then slow it down so that it's in slow motion, you'll actually see that LED lights are like flickering like very, very, very quickly. And though we can't perceive that with our human eyes, our cells are picking up on that. So lighting is very stressful to the human body. It can sort of cause ADD and ADHD for kids that are really sensitive. So most stores won't even sell full spectrum lighting anymore. I like to use a website called healthlighting.com to get all the lighting for our home and our office, so that it is full spectrum, meaning it has all the colors of the rainbow, just like the sun's light does, whereas LED lights just has a blue light. So going on from there, going outside in the morning, going outside midday, and avoiding bright lights and bright screens while the sun is down. Also, when outside, if you can, ground your bare feet on the earth as much as possible. So just walking barefoot on the earth when you're outside is a really good idea. Earth is yin, the sun is yang, so we're kind of harmonizing our bodies to that yin and yang energy, to that natural rhythm. Also, when you ground, and I think we have slides on this coming up, you discharge static electricity that our bodies pick up from Wi-Fi routers, from all this electricity in our environment. The earth will absorb that, and that is very good for you. And then you will absorb chi from the earth. You'll literally absorb electrons from the earth while this is happening, and that is very healthy for you as well. It reduces inflammation. It has a calming effect. So when the sun is rising from midnight until noon, again, is the yang time in your environment. It's very important to sleep before midnight. We already discussed that. And when the sun is going down from noon until midnight is the yin time in your environment. And it's very important to wake up before noon. Otherwise, you miss that yang energy. So again, this is all about just getting in the flow of the universe, getting in the flow of creation. And that will allow you to be more creative in your life, and that will allow you to create life more easily. Think about how our ancestors were naturally connected to this rhythm. Yes, it's only pretty recent in human history that we have had unnatural lighting and all this electricity in our environment. For thousands of years before, like, we were always up with the sun, naturally going down with the sun, always connected to the earth. And now we're basically living lives that are very separate from nature. And infertility is just one symptom of the separation from nature. You know, like I said, it's very natural, should be very natural for a female human body of childbearing age to just naturally get pregnant without too much difficulty, and be able to conceive that child. But we've been living out of sync with nature. So one way we could look at this is like this infertility problem is that the human species is actually kind of going extinct because we're living so out of sync with nature. So this course is about getting back in sync with nature, and experiencing much better fertility as a result of that. So this technique that we just went over, this with sunlight, not only does this balance your yin and yang energy, like I said, it balances your hormones. It also balances your neurotransmitters, making us much more fertile. It makes us have better moods, makes us less depressed, less anxious, more grounded, more happy. As we align with the rhythm, the natural rhythm of life, we become more receptive to bring in new life. This is how we identify yin-yang patterns of disharmony in our bodies. So signs of yin deficiency: short menstrual cycles, light or scanty periods, night sweats, hot flashes, dry skin or vaginal dryness, anxiety, restlessness. And then on the other side of it, signs of yang deficiency: feeling cold easily, cold hands and feet, frequent urination, especially at night, infertility related to luteal phase defects like poor implantation, early miscarriage, low libido, fatigue. And on the right side there, signs of yin excess, which we also call dampness, feeling of heaviness or bloating. I would also add being overweight, sticky, thick vaginal discharge, frequent loose stools, brain fog, just feeling that kind of foggy brain, that heaviness in your head, ovarian cysts, fibroids, PCOS patterns. Signs of yang excess, feeling hot or flushed, irritability, insomnia, heavy clotty periods, or mid-cycle bleeding. And kind of see what pattern of disharmony you associate most with. And it's pretty typical to have more than one. You can have yang and yin deficiency at the same time. You can have yin excess, and yin deficiency at the same time. But usually people have more than one. So whatever category you have more symptoms on is probably where you want to work on the most, and we'll show you how to do that as we go forward. It's, you don't have to be perfectly balanced, but we just want to balance where we can. We want to start to have more of a balance of yin and yang. So, sometimes you have a very demanding job or demanding family life, and which requires a lot of yang energy. So if your life is like that, then you need to schedule in more yin time for yourself. You need to go get a massage every week, or you need to try to schedule in a nap every day, a siesta. You know what I mean? And on the other side of that, if you don't have much going on and you're kind of sluggish and just laying down all the time and you just feel like you have no energy, you might need to force yourself to get up a little bit sometimes and stimulate your yang energy, and you'll see, like, once you start getting that going, it'll have a momentum effect. So we just want to think about our bodies, think about our lifestyles in terms of yin and yang, and start thinking about how we can bring more balance into our lifestyles, and that will greatly, greatly increase our fertility. Just getting deeper into it so we have a better understanding about it. So yang deficiency, this is also known as cold womb, or having a low lining quality. Just getting more specific with the signs and symptoms of yang deficiency. So cold sensation, especially on the low back or abdomen, just having low energy, frequent urination, especially at night, having low libido, having dark brown or purple dry blood during the menstrual cycle most often, pain, cold feet. If you look at your tongue and it seems very pale and light as opposed to pink, that's a sign of yang deficiency. Having a thin uterine lining, having longer cycles or delayed ovulation are signs of yang deficiency affecting the fertility. So the impact on fertility of yang deficiency can be what we call having a cold uterus, implantation failure, early miscarriage, slow development. So both yin and yang must be balanced to create the warm, nourished, and vital environment needed for new life. So thinking of the uterus there, so if you're yang deficient, your uterus is going to be on the cooler side. So if you're going to it's like living in a house and not having heat in the winter. So warmth is life. With warmth comes more circulation. The blood does not flow properly when there's cold. So it's very important, especially if you feel more cold, to use a heat pad on your lower abdomen or your back. Sometimes you want to keep that oven warm. You want to keep that oven warm to promote a good environment to bring in new life. And building on that here, warming the womb by strengthening the yang. So why is warming the womb so critical in Eastern medicine? So the uterus is seen as a palace of the child. It's zigong in Chinese medicine. It needs to be warm, nourished, and flowing, just like fertile soil needs warmth for seeds to grow. A cold uterus is believed to block conception, implantation, and healthy development of a pregnancy. So very, very important to strengthen the yang energy if you're showing signs of yang deficiency. Warming the womb using the Eastern medicine techniques that we're going to go over with you. It improves blood circulation to the uterus and ovaries. It strengthens the kidney yang. The kidneys, which we'll get into more later, powers reproductive energy. I think we went over Jing already and how important the kidneys are. It contains your essence. It enhances implantation by creating a warm, welcoming uterine lining. It supports hormone balance, especially in the luteal phase. And it reduces menstrual cramps caused by cold stagnation. If you're someone that has bad menstrual cramps, it's very important not to eat cold things before your period or during your period. You don't want to be drinking icy cold drinks and smoothies and raw salads and things like that. It's really important to keep things warm and nourishing in terms of your food, and you'll notice that your cramps will get better. How to warm the womb. So there's many ways to do this. One of the best ways is to drink warming herbal teas such as ginger and cinnamon. These are yang tonics in Chinese medicine. Like I just said, avoiding cold, raw, iced foods, especially before and during menstruation. Keeping your feet, lower back, and abdomen warm. You can use warm packs or heating pads, moxibustion, which we'll go over in a little while. And also you'll see in a little while that keeping the feet warm is because the yin meridians flow down to the feet. So if your feet are cold, it can actually stagnate the blood circulation in the reproductive area because the qi is flowing up from the feet into the reproductive area. So if the feet are very cold, that qi is not going to be flowing, which means that blood is not going to be flowing as well. And that's going to cause cold womb and a lack of circulation and nutrition to the reproductive area. Focus on eating warm, cooked meals, especially soups, stews, and congee. Practicing gentle movements like qigong or brisk walking. Using a heating pad. Avoiding sleeping under a fan or air vent that has cold air coming out. Yes, all of these are very important, especially if you're showing signs of yang deficiency when concerning your fertility. So nice image there. A warm womb is like sun-kissed soil. It invites life to take root. Yes, so we're inviting life to take root in your body by doing all of these practices and caring for yourself in these ways and thinking about your yang, your yin, and creating balance in those energy dynamics. By doing those things, we're inviting life, we're becoming more receptive to being a mother. Now the other end of the spectrum, yin deficiency here. So signs that you may have yin deficiency: dryness is the biggest one, dry skin, dry hair, dry vaginal tissue, night sweats, this is leaking the yin, anxiety, premature ovarian decline, the impact on fertility of yin deficiency, poor egg quality, thin uterine lining, difficulty sustaining pregnancy. The kidney yin is the source of all yin in the body, as the kidneys correspond to the water element. But when the kidney yin is deficient over time, it will lead to a yin deficiency in all other organs as well. So having adequate kidney yin and kidney yang is absolutely essential for fertility. And we're going to be showing you guys some of the supplements we like to use for our patients, typically to keep the kidney yin and the kidney yang nice and healthy. Techniques to strengthen the yin. Proper hydration is number one. We recommend half your body weight in ounces of water daily. Rest, laying down, and being horizontal. Just doing that alone will strengthen the yin, especially if you're up doing things all the time, you have a very busy life. Just taking some time to lay down horizontally and just taking some deep breaths, even for just 5 or 10 minutes, can be a very yin restorative practice for someone with yin deficiency. Siesta or yoga nidra would be even better if you have the time to do those things. Yin nourishing foods and herbs. Herbs we'll get into more later. We have a whole module on that. There's acupressure points that we can do to tonify and strengthen the yin. We'll get into that later as well. Yin yoga, minimizing EMF exposure, and grounding. Again, grounding is putting your bare feet or your bare skin directly on the earth. Earth is the ultimate source of yin. And EMFs, electromagnetic fields from cell phones, Wi-Fi, all dirty electricity sources, computers, TVs, fluorescent lights. This energy, these electromagnetic fields are actually categorized as a yang energy. So as a yang energy, it has a very drying effect on the body. So honestly, almost everybody today has yin deficiency on some level, to some degree, just because we're living in this EMF world. So it's very important to do grounding whenever you can. And that's why people feel so good, when they go to the beach, when they go to parks and they lay on the ground. It's one of the most restorative things you can do to strengthen your yin and get those EMFs out of your biofield. And this is a big one too, adding more simplicity and stillness to your life. So just think about your life. If you feel like you have yin deficiency, think about your life and think about where you can bring more simplicity, more stillness, more minimalism into your life. That can have a very profound effect on strengthening the yin. Yin and yang apply to the menstrual cycle. Got a nice quote here. Fertility is not just a moment. It is the art of harmonizing the inner tides of yin and yang across each month. Yes, so that's what we're teaching you guys in this course, is how to live more in harmony with nature, living with the inner tides of yin and yang, harmonizing your yin and yang energy to the yin and yang energy of the universe. And every month, your fertility will just get better and better as you start living that way. So thinking about the female menstrual cycle, it's more yin dominant. Females are more yin as opposed to males, which are more yang. So the female hormonal cycle aligns with the moon, which is more yin, and the male hormonal cycle aligns more with the sun, which is the ultimate yang. So the male hormonal cycle runs on a 24-hour rhythm, whereas the female hormonal cycle runs on a 29.5-day rhythm, like the moon. So women follow a daily circadian rhythm, but the hormones estrogen, progesterone, LH, and FSH rise and fall with the moon's longer pattern and pace. This means during fertility windows, there's usually more energy during ovulation, which is very yang, while when it's closer to the menstrual phase, women can experience a dip in the body's signals for more rest. So we really want to listen to our bodies. You want to listen to your body during your monthly cycle and try to follow that rhythm, not try to go against it or resist it. And we'll talk about men a little bit here, because men's health is very important for fertility as well. So men's daily hormone fluctuations mirrors the sun daily cycle, meaning testosterone, cortisol, and melatonin rise and fall depending on the sun. The morning is the peak, while evening is the dip in testosterone. This can show in energy levels, appetite, and focus, etc. Yes, men's testosterone is much higher in the morning. Sperm quality is actually much better in the morning, so it's much better to have sex in the morning if you're having sex to conceive a child. During the evening, especially if your husband's or your partner's worked a long day, the sperm just isn't going to be as strong as it would be in the morning. Another good quote there: when in sync with the energies of nature, we express more health and balance. Yes, that's what we're learning here in this yin and yang module. And just understanding the menstrual cycle there, and looking at the moon cycle as well. And this kind of takes me back to the fractal model a little bit, just how cool, how connected we are to the universe and to the cosmos, and how the women are connected to the moon and the men are more connected to the sun. You can kind of see how it all lines up and it all kind of makes sense somehow. So the moon cycle is 29 and a half days. The average menstrual cycle length is 28 days. You can see ovulation up there with the full moon, and as the moon goes on, the moon cycle goes on, we get into the luteal phase, the menstrual phase, and then the follicular phase. How yin and yang affect the menstrual cycle and ovulation. So during the follicular phase, it's still yin, but yang is beginning to grow and stimulate the follicles. During ovulation, there's a burst of yang energy as LH triggers the release of the egg. And during the luteal phase, yang maintains warmth for implantation and pregnancy, and the yin starts to grow. And the menstrual cycle is a time of yin. And that's why you should really rest during your menstrual cycle and just allow your body to process. A disruption in yin or yang can cause irregular cycles, poor egg development, luteal phase defects, or difficulty conceiving. So we just want to be mindful of your monthly cycle, and just thinking about how it runs with the moon cycle, and just trying to get in harmony with nature as much as possible. You don't want to be resisting too much against the natural flow of the universe during your monthly cycle, not just when you're menstruating, but the whole cycle, the whole 28-day cycle. So during ovulation, it might be a time where you naturally have more energy, you have more yang energy, so it might be more natural for you to have more on your plate during this time, to do more activity. Whereas during your menstrual cycle, you should really rest if you can. You don't want to overwork during your menstrual cycle if you can help it. You really just want to take it easy, and just live in accordance with the natural yin and yang cycle during this time. During the menstrual phase, progesterone from the corpus luteum runs out, blood flow from capillaries shut off, causing old lining to detach and shed. The FSH activity begins, the follicles start growing, estimated around day 3. And in the utmost yin new moon of the cycle, the winter of the cycle, you'll have lower energy, release of blood, which is yin. That means you're literally losing yin as you're bleeding. And this requires more restoration and reset to help the incoming yang. So if you're very active during your menstrual cycle while you're bleeding, you're just depleting your yin more. So again, if you can, just really, really rest during your menstrual cycle. Even if you don't have pain, you should still take it easy. And then after the menstrual cycle, this is when the yang starts up again. Dominant follicle is selected. FSH increases to mature the egg. Estrogen rises to thicken the new lining. This is yang within the yin. So when looking at the yin-yang symbol, you could also place this right over this little circle here on the left, and you can see how the yin and yang model applies to this as well. So this is the yang within the yin. This is like spring after the winter. This is like midnight, after you've been sleeping for a couple hours. The yang starts to grow and stimulate. More blood flow to the uterine lining starts thickening it, and more movement is healthy at this time. And then in the ovulation phase, this is when LH rises. The LH surge is quick. The egg is ejected from the shell of the corpus luteum. The lining is plump and thick. This is the utmost yang, usually around the full moon or the summer of the menstrual cycle. Most physical activity is supported at this time. That's why, this is when you tend to have sex and you tend to have a higher libido. You're mentally sharper, your senses are heightened, so it's natural to have more activity during this time. And then we get into the luteal phase. The shell that housed the egg dissolves and emits progesterone. This is implantation time, thickest lining of the cycle. If there's no HCG, then it starts to decline and cue the next bleeding. So the yin starts to build. This is the autumn of the cycle, the fall of the cycle, the fall of the yang, approaching the yin. So this is when it's good to start lowering the intensity of your lifestyle. To be the house, allow for strong implantation. And here's just another good chart here to kind of see how your hormones fluctuate during your monthly cycle. You can see the yang on the left there and the yin. And I just really like this chart, just kind of blending the east and the west here, the Eastern medicine with the Western medicine. So here's just another nice image here as we close up this yin and yang lesson and thinking about the monthly cycle. So we already talked about this, but just synchronizing your activities and your lifestyle based on what you would do in each specific season, but kind of putting that on every month. So during your menstrual cycle there, you can see numbers 1 through 5, days 1 through 5. That corresponds to winter. So this would be more of a hibernation time for you. So just thinking about exercise, maybe this is probably a time where you don't do any exercise, but you're just completely yin. You're in a hibernating mode. There's more stillness, more rest, so you don't lose any more yin than you already are. And then as we get into the follicular phase at the top there, as the yang starts to come out, the sun starts to come out, spring is starting, we start to have a little bit more energy. Maybe you start doing some brisk walking, maybe you start doing some yoga flows, maybe some qigong. And then as you move on to ovulation, the excess yang, or the utmost yang rather, maybe this is the time of the month that you do a little bit of weightlifting. It's a little more yang, there's a little more testosterone used. And then as we get into the luteal phase there at the bottom, this is like fall. So the yang starts to decrease a little bit. We're heading more into the yin. So we start to slow down a little bit with our exercise routine and our lifestyle. So maybe instead of weightlifting, we're just doing some walking. We're doing some yin yoga, thing like that. That's not so taxing on our adrenal system. So we just want to think about that in terms of exercise, in terms of our work-life balance. And I know there's going to be things that we can't control. Some of you have demanding jobs, and the company you work for has its own cycle and its own deadlines that you have to go along with. But don't try to be, over-controlling. You just want to control what you can. So everybody can control, their exercise routine or their diet and what they're putting in their bodies. So just focus on what you can control. Think about the cycles of yin and yang when thinking about your 28-day cycle, and just try to live your life in correspondence with that natural rhythm. And this will have a very, very compounding, beneficial effect on your fertility over time.